Well, it's now time to bring you up to speed with what has been happening across the 47 counties in our nation and the globe in general. This is TV47 News Weekend. I am Mariam Mwacharo. But before we take a look at what we have prepared for you, let's have a look at the highlights. Ahead on tonight's bulletin, Kabuchai Member of Parliament James Mukwe Lusweti dies in Nairobi Hospital after a long illness. Also tonight, Kenya to record an economic growth of 0.6% this year, the lowest ever in history. Plus, President Uhuru Kenyatta chides international development partners against meddling in national affairs. And on Good Vibes tonight, we tell you of a man who refused to be derailed by challenges he faced in his formative stages, including 2 years as a street urchin. Now remember, you're watching us from Mombasa County, our studios here, and definitely our sign language interpreter is Ann Kimodo, and later on we'll be joining the whole team at the Good Vibes. We have with us Mwangi Maina waiting, as well as David Mudhoka back in our studios in Nairobi. Now let's begin. President Uhuru Kenyatta has led the nation in mourning the death of Kabuchai Member of Parliament James Mukwe Lusweti. Lusweti died at a Nairobi hospital today afternoon after a long illness. The Ford Kenya Party MP had been suffering from arthritis and gout for several years. Several Ford Kenya leaders, accompanied by family and friends of the leave at the funeral home to view the body later in the evening. Ford Kenya National Organizing Secretary Chris Mandu eulogized the fallen MP as a humble leader. Ford Kenya Acting Secretary General Millicent Abudho regretted that Lusweti's death was a big blow for the party and Kabuchai's constituency.
It's a sad evening for us as a family, as a party, because we have lost one of our own, Mheshimiwa James Mukwe, the MP for Kabuchai, who has been actually sick for quite some time. I know the Ford Kenya family, what is going through as I speak, because Mukwe was a very lovely, was a very friendly, was a very humble man.
Today is a sad day for us as Ford Kenya fraternity, and we take this opportunity to say pole to the family of Honorable Lusweti. He was a really dedicated man in the party, and he's one of the people who stood with the party to the last bit of his life.
As a party, we have lost a great man, a member of parliament with a distinction, a man who started off as a councillor and is serving his second term, I think, as a member of parliament. As a family, we have lost this jovial and friendly man. As a party, we are bereaved. And I know that wherever Muhesh is going, God is going to take care of him.
Heading on, Kenya is expected to register the lowest growth rate ever this year at 0.6% from 5.4% in 2019. Speaking during the groundbreaking of the Ugatuzi Tower in Nairobi, President Kenyatta admitted that the economy has greatly been affected by the coronavirus pandemic. However, the Council of Governors has launched a county economy recovery plan, which they believe will help see the country back to its feet.
Kenya's economy is expected to record a growth rate of 0.6% this year from 5.4% in 2019, the biggest drop in Kenya's history. This was said by President Uhuru Kenyatta on Friday during the groundbreaking ceremony of the G47 Ugatuzi Tower that will be home to devolution in Nairobi.
Kenya's economy has also suffered the wrath of this pandemic, and it is estimated that we shall register a growth of 0.6% in 2020, and this is indeed a sharp drop from the growth of 5.4% that we had in 2019.
Meanwhile, the Council of Governors has launched a social economic recovery strategy, which is expected to save the country from the ravaging effects of the coronavirus disease on the economy.
The county governments have also come up with the county COVID-19 social, economic, reengineering and recovery strategy, and I think Professor Anyang' Nyong'o has taken us through, that will support the economies of counties to bounce back from impact of the COVID-19.
The recovery strategy will focus on 5 key issues, including boosting the private sector as well as policy and legislative reforms.
The strategy encompasses 5 pillars. 1, boosting private sector. 2nd, enhancing ICT. 3rd, human resource development. 4th, policy and legislative reforms. And lastly, disaster preparedness.
The Social Economy Recovery Plan also aims to improve agricultural productivity by training farmers, reduce gender-based violence, improve access to essential healthcare, and promote national home ownership programs. However, President Kenyatta warned the leaders against misusing the already limited resources when implementing the strategy.
The strategy plans at both the county and national levels draw on limited resources that have become even more diminished due to the social economic impacts of the pandemic. These limited resources must be utilized strictly for the purpose of elevating our nation. They must be used faithfully and with utmost transparency and accountability. We will not have a second chance at implementing recovery and resurgence strategies for the enduring benefit of Kenyans as we do now.
The County Economy Recovery Strategy is expected to be implemented over the next 3 financial years and is estimated to cost taxpayers a whopping 132 billion shillings.
The strategy will be implemented in 3 consecutive financial years, ending with 2022-2023. Cumulatively, the strategy will require a total budget of 132 billion Kenya shillings towards the recovery of county government economies.
Once finished, Ugatuzi Tower, which will act as the headquarters of the Council of Governors, will be 5 stories high, becoming the tallest building in Kenya and in Africa. The building will also host intergovernmental liaison offices as well as a devolution museum. Musa Salah, TV47.
Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has asked international donors to refrain from interfering with Kenya's internal affairs despite contributing to the country's development. President Kenyatta said that Kenya has the ability to decide and implement its own policies without being guided by anyone.
I must also make it clear that while we appreciate your support and look forward to your collaboration, you must always remember that Kenya has its owners, and its owners are 50 million Kenyans. And please, I ask you to refrain from interfering or telling us or trying to direct us in which way we should go. We are clear on where we want to go. We ask you to join us, to support us in that endeavor. But do not interfere, because we shall not allow for you to dictate to us which direction that should be. That will be up to Kenyans. Na tafadhali nawaomba kwa heshima kubwa, mtuheshimu ndio tuwaheshimu. Si namna hiyo, kila mtu ako na shida zake, ama namna gani? Even they have their own problems to resolve huko kwao. They have no business lecturing us about how to fix ours. Anyway, I say that in good faith, very good faith. I will not allow that, and we shall not allow that as a country.
Elsewhere, over 5 million BBI signatures have been collected countrywide, with Nyanza province, or rather Nyanza, recording the highest number with over 800,000 signatures. The BBI Secretariat received the signatures in Nairobi in an event graced by Raila Odinga and other leaders who have continued drumming up support for BBI. Joan Maina reports.
The BBI Secretariat, led by Dennis Waweru and Suna East Member of Parliament Junet Mohamed, received over 5 million signatures from the BBI coordinators. The signatures were recorded in the last 7 days from all the 47 counties, Nyanza leading with over 893,792 signatures.
We are going now to the bedroom, and that is Nyanza. Nyanza 893,792. Well done, Nyanza. Asante. It is the highest actually, Your Excellency. They have done a good job.
Speaking during the event, ODM leader Raila Odinga said the report is the solution to all the problems and challenges dogging the country. Raila called upon those opposing the report, explaining that IEBC will receive the signatures for verification before the Constitution Amendment Bill 2020 moves to the county assemblies and later on to the National Assembly.
We have over 5 million signatures in support of the bill, and more are still coming. Tulianza mwezi wa Machi mwaka 2018. Sasa ni zaidi ya miaka 2 na nusu mpaka tumefika hapa. Madhumuni wetu ni kuona kama Kenya inaweza kutekeleza wajibu wake, tunaweza kutekeleza ndoto ya uanzilishi wa taifa letu.
On his part, Majority Leader in the National Assembly, Amos Kimunya, congratulated Raila Odinga and the President for involving and including women in the report.
Only 2 people who are willing to take a risk. Afadhali hata BBI yanguke, but women should be there. The only 2 people who are taking that risk is Honorable Raila Odinga and His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
Kiambu Women Representative Gathoni Mushomba appreciated over 700,000 people from Central Kenya who signed the BBI report, adding that the BBI is an inclusive document.
Tumejitetea kwa kutosha kwa sababu vile proposal ya BBI imetengeneza maneno ya wamama, sisi wamama viongozi tunaona tumeshughulikiwa.
I invite my brothers who are inciting my brother William Ruto to Stonewall. Please come. Let us eat together. The food is on the table. You can't take the soup back to the bakuli.
Nobody can stop reggae, 'cause reggae's
With over 5 million collected signatures, now all eyes are on IEBC that is required to verify them and move the process to the county assemblies. Joan Minor, TV47.
Now, as Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko's fate lies before the Senate, the city's residents may be forced into a by-election ahead of a referendum in order to enable day-to-day running of the county affairs that have hit a snag as there is no budget for the 2020-2021 financial year. Mike Kagwongo has more.
Governor Mike Sonko's effort to extricate himself from irate Nairobi City MCA's hook failed yesterday, after the majority of them voted in support of his impeachment. 88 Nairobi County Assembly MCAs supported the agenda against just 2 MCAs.
The Assembly has resolved to remove His Excellency the Governor, Mike Sonko, from office by 2/3 of the members.
Lawyer Henry Mahakara feels that yesterday's outcome points to a likely by-election involving a governor and a deputy governor, should the Senate uphold the county assembly's decision.
It is not to constitute a permanent solution to the absence of a deputy governor. It is designed to enable public authorities such as county governments to cross a bridge over difficulty. The central government is bound by the law to allow democracy to decide who forms the leadership of the county government of Bungoma. The law requires an election, and the election brought into leadership somebody called Mike Sonko.
This is so because the county has had no deputy governor who can succeed the governor should he be impeached. Polycarp Igathe resigned as Governor Sonko's deputy in January 2018, citing failure to earn the governor's trust. Initial MCA's attempt to oust Governor Sonko were foiled by President Uhuru Kenyatta's intervention, but lawyer Henry Mahakara feels the MCAs have a backing of the efficiency of the Nairobi Metropolitan Services NMS, which has been in existence for 10 months now.
The polarity that seems to be hurting service delivery, the polarity between Governor Sonko's administration and NMS and Treasury, to the extent that funds are now not able to be unlocked for operations.
He says the constitution allows for power and service transfer to the central government, although NMS informally runs the county's affairs.
It does have some grounding in law. Why? Because Article 187 of the Constitution permits the transfer of functions vertically. Is Nairobi Metropolitan Services a vertical recipient of transfer of power? No, it is not. It is not national government. It is headed by a member of the executive, a member of the Kenya Defence Forces. So to that extent, there is a little bit of irregularity. Does that irregularity take away legitimacy in service delivery? It does not.
However, BBI politics seems to have played a big role in the ouster, and Sonko may not be salvaged by the Senate. Last week, Sonko appeared to drop a hardliner stance while embracing various methods to salvage himself, among them approaching President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga. But for the blood of Nairobi residents, the two top BBI proponents might crucify Sonko.
For now, Governor Sonko is a gadfly. He's a fly in the ointment, in the soup that government would like to take on behalf of people of Nairobi, and they will remove that fly from the soup and spit it out. So Governor Sonko is going to be collateral damage. He is going to be history.
Reporting for TV47, I'm Mike Kagwang.
Now remember, you can interact with us on our social media platforms, and that's Facebook, Instagram and Twitter is at TV47 Kenya, or send us a text directly on our 22047. Do not go away, we'll be right back.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri, kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka County 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri, kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka County 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helps the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka kaunti 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be having this opportunity to tell the story of how equity helped the local sector. There's a lot more that we can do locally. Let's explore and let's see what we can do.
Equity, bega kwa bega.
Wajuao walisema kwamba jina jema hung'aa hata gizani.
Na vilevile wakasema bora ni bora iliyoboreshwa, na habari za TV47 zinazidi kuimarika kila kuchapo.
Tunasanzuka na kutamba ili kuhakikisha tunaweka bayana taarifa kemkem zenye usawa na mantiki.
Katika mida ya alasiri kabla ya jua kutua, kutoka kaunti 001 na kupeperushia shina la upeo.
Na inapowadia saa 1 kamili,
nachukua usukani kukufahamisha
na kukupeperushia taarifa ipasavyo.
Tutakueleza ni kipi kilichojiri na wahusika ni wepi.
Ungana nasi kila siku ya wiki tukujuze, kwani usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
If we had not gone into PPEs right now, we wouldn't be happy.
This is TV47. Happy holidays.
Thank you for staying tuned to the fastest television station that's growing in the country. This is the home of untold stories. Welcome back. Now, university student leaders have condemned plans by university management to increase fees from 16,000 to 48,000, arguing that the new fees will make university education very costly and many will have to drop out. Led by University President's chairperson Albert Maloba, the students have appealed to Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha to intervene before they mobilize all public universities to participate in street demonstrations next week. This as their counterparts from Nairobi accuse the government of operating double standards by claiming it prioritizes its youth while at the same time imposing a financial burden on them.
Streets of Nairobi, we shall demand the ouster of one individual. And we have said this, repeating again and again, and I think we know the individual, who is the parent of the leadership of the entire Ministry of Education.
A lot of comrades would either drop out of school or be back behind on their school fees. Take for example, a student that stays out of the school and pays around 8,000 shillings for accommodation. Now, add that to the 48,000 as well as the food that they shall be partaking, as well as everything else that comes with books and everything else. That comes down to the fact that a comrade who is asked to increase fees to 48,000 might drop out.
It's very unfortunate that this government seems to be at war with its own youths. Because fundamentally, the state owes its citizens, and by extension its youth, an opportunity, affordable opportunity for self-advancement. And that includes intellectual engagement. So the moment the government wants to hike fees, and naturally make education unaffordable for youths, then it paints a very unfortunate picture of where our priorities are as a country.
Comrades power. Power. Comrades power. Power. Comrades fee must fall, comrades. Fee must fall. Comrades fee must fall, comrades. Fee must fall. Viva comrades, viva. Viva.
Moving on, Chief Justice David Maraga has called on the Attorney General to find ways of amending the Sexual Offences Act to remove clauses on the minimum sentence which denies courts independence to exercise their discretion in determining sexual offences. The CJ sympathized with young boys who have been jailed as a result of the act, saying the law was unfair to them and that it should be changed to allow judges to determine the sentence depending on each case. Justice Maraga, who presided over commissioning of an ultra-modern court complex in Nakuru town, spoke and admitted that there was a problem with the law when it comes to young offenders, as in some instances, boys and not girls are punished when they were both underage. Section 8 of the Sexual Offences Act provides that a person who defiles a child aged 11 or less shall, upon conviction, be sentenced to life imprisonment, while a person who defiles a child between the age of 12 and 15 is liable to imprisonment for a term not less than 20 years.
Because the girl is below 18, the boy is taken as somebody who has defiled and sent to prison for very many years. I have a serious problem with those kind of cases. I have, however, no problem whatsoever, and I have held, very many sentences where you get a child of 10 having been defiled by a man aged 50 and over. I have no time for such a fellows. That act needs to be looked at, and because we are having serious challenges with our young boys in prison.
Joan Chebet Kipkoech, a 27-year-old living with disability, has lived for that long trying to track or rather crack the puzzle of meeting her biological mother, but all she gets is the description given by her aunt who cares for her. Our reporter Calvin Chitwa visited her inside Kaptagat Forest, where Chebet and her aunt call home, and here is the report on the resilience and determination of the ladies trying to make ends meet.
The story of Joan Chebet Kipkoech begins with an experience she has undergone since her mother abandoned her at the age of 2.
Kuna rafiki nilimpata mahali, so tukaongea na mimi sikuwa namjua, but yeye alinijua. Sasa tukaongea, ndena akaniuliza, nikanipea namba. So vile alinipea namba, nikajaribu kumwangalia. Mara ya kwanza aliongea vizuri, mara ya pili akushika simu, mara ya tatu ndena akaniambia usukura ni sumbo kwa sababu utanifunjia nyumba. So inamaanisha maybe aliolewa kwingine, but hakujieleza alikuwa na mtoto kama mimi. But sisi kwa na shida, nilikuwa nataka tuko ni motherly love.
Her legs are paralyzed and she has had to persevere with a myriad of health problems due to her inability to walk. Chebet's father died in 2015 and she has been depending on her aunt, who took up the responsibility of caring for her.
She was 1 year. Vile alikuwa mwaka moja, mama yake aliwacha, vile aliona atembei, akawacha yeye.
Chebet and her aunt Elizabeth Chelimo Arusei stay in a forest land, and due to financial woes, she never got a chance to join high school. Fortunately, well-wishers helped her to pursue a course at Kabarnet Rehabilitation Center in Baringo County.
Ningepata mtu at least kunianzishia kunilia machine, then at least nipate mahali pa kuishi, ama hata mtu, unajua hapa mahali tunaishi ni forest, so atuko that stable. So mtu unajua tu forest watu wanatoanga tu anytime.
Chebet has been doing hand sewing. However, accessing raw materials and the market remains a hurdle for her.
Sina chuki na yeye, nampenda tu venye akwa. Sina, yani ila alikuwa nataka tu nijue, nilikuwa na ile motherly love, but sina chuki na yeye.
Despite all the challenges, Joan Chebet has remained positive about life, and she is optimistic that if well-wishers can come in to help her acquire the hand sewing machine, she'll become self-reliant and also help her aunt. A sewing machine which can help her do the work effectively cost 30,000 shillings, which her aunt can't afford.
Tumejaza forms mara mingi. Tumeenda social service, Chepkorio na Iten. Lakini bado majina inachukuliwa lakini hakuna pesa yote ambaye tumepata.
They are appealing to leaders and local administration to ensure resources meant for the needy and persons living with disability in society benefit them directly.
Hajapata hata wheelchair, hajaonekana na hata na kanisa. Tungeota hata na makanisa wawe wakitembelea watu kama hawa na wasaidie.
Calvin Chitwa, TV47, Elgeyo Marakwet County.
Now, on other news across borders is that over 1,200 youth living with different types of disabilities in Rwanda will be equipped with technical and business skills as a part of the effort to create an inclusive and enabling environment to access and succeed in employment. Diana Iriza, our correspondent in Rwanda, has more details.
This year, the International Day of Persons with Disabilities was commemorated yesterday throughout the week of 30th November to 4th December in conjunction with the 13th session of the Conference of States Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. In Rwanda, over 1,200 youth living with different types of disabilities will be equipped with technical and business skills as a part of the effort to create an inclusive and enabling environment to access and succeed in employment. USAID pledged to fund this initiative with $1.5 million, and it will tackle barriers that hinder youth with disabilities from attaining employment opportunities, addressing both the supply and demand sides of the labor market. The United Nations resident coordinator in Rwanda gave his remarks on the celebration of this day.
Since the adoption of the International Day of Disabled Person almost 30 years ago, progress has been made. However, it is still insufficient for the 1 billion people living with disabilities. But more importantly, for humanity to be diverse but more inclusive. As the Secretary General of UN said, the rights of persons with disabilities touch on every aspect of life. The right to go to school, to live in one's community, to access health care, to start a family, to engage in political participation, to be able to play sport, to travel, and to have decent work.
December 3rd is an International Observance Day promoted by the United Nations since 1992. It has been observed with varying degrees of success around the planet. The observance of the day aims to promote an understanding of disability issues and mobilize support for the dignity, rights and well-being of persons with disabilities. Diana Iriza, Kigali, Rwanda.
Well, now it's time to cross over now to the good vibes, where we look at stories of positivity and hope. And as usual, I have with me a wonderful panel. I have with me David Mudhoka and Mwangi Maina from our studios in Nairobi. If I may start with David Mudhoka, what were you working on?
Well, Mariam Macharo, I can hear you loud and clear. I hope that everything is good from the coastal side of the country. So this week I embarked on a story of a 31-year-old man. His name is Job Makori, a Nyamira resident. So what happened with Job? His tender age was one that had quite some difficulties. He juggled between home and school due to lack of school fees, and so he wasn't a stranger to a cruel world from a very tender age. And when 17 years old came knocking, and he had now sat his KCSE examination, at that time, you know, there was nobody there to tell him you have to go out there and hustle and fend for yourself, and that is what he exactly did. Traveled to Nairobi to meet and stay with a relative, but it's a story that you might have heard before with somebody else. He could not connect with the relatives, so he now had to stay on the streets for some 2 years before he could find his feet. But during that period, his passion and his thirst for education did not wane, and immediately he got fit to stand on, he's currently now pursuing a degree course in theology. We can take a look at that story.
At just 17 years old, Job Makori was not a stranger to a cruel world. His family in Nyamira lived from hand to mouth, and his education until he sat his KCSE exam was marred by frequent dismissals over lack of school fees.
I used to struggle kwenda kulimia watu mahindi, kupalilia majani chai, kulimalima mashamba so that I can boost my education. So nikafanya hivyo. When I was about to do my Form 4 exams, pesa ikanikosa ya kufanya registration. Ndio one of my friends anaitwa Hezbon Momanyi, a student then. I was a spiritual leader and Hezbon was my classmate. Akaona uchungu vile nataka kwenda nyumbani bila kuregister mtihani. So akaanza kupita katika kila darasa kuchanga shilingi 10 za wanafunzi.
But none of these experiences were a match for what awaited him once he set foot in the city under the sun in search for a manual job to sustain his university education ambitions.
Nikapanda gari executive Keroka, nikakuja nikashuka Chakanchir, nikakaa pale Chakanchir. There's one of my uncles ako hapa Nairobi. Unfortunately we could not connect, so ikabidi nimekaa. But at the night naenda nachukua gunia, naingia pale kichorochoro mahali Kenya mpya wanabeba saa hii, nalala. Asubuhi ikifika kama nimeona town imekuwa mbaya sana, nakuja Uhuru Park, nalala. Ona kama watu wengine wamelala saa hii.
With nowhere to go and without any specialized skills nor knowledge of what to do, the streets will become his new home and way of life until 2 years later when he found his feet once again.
I continued my life like that until one day nilipotembea mpaka Likoni Road, nikazunguka nikafika Lungalunga Road, nikaona kampuni moja imeandikwa Gajiam Good Works inafanya kazi ya mbao. Nikaona soja, nikaongea na soja akaniambia hapa unaweza pata kazi.
The 31-year-old father of one has since turned the stones life threw at him into a beacon of hope, having joined the University of Bugema in Kampala, Uganda. The second-year theology student's dream to become a scholar is alive and well. The staunch Seventh-day Adventist reveals he has been raising school fees through this motorbike as a boda rider during holidays. He, however, admits putting food on his table, saving for school and fending for his young family with his motorbike has been a tightrope he has been forced to walk.
At the end of the day, I have a target of 2,000 shillings. The 500 I save for my education. The other 500 shillings I save for my rent. And another 500 shillings ni ya mahitaji yangu ya nyumba. That's how I survive. The 100 shillings yenye inabaki inaitwa hizi zingine miscellaneous.
Makori insists that he is just getting started, and if beating all odds is the only way to save his family from what he went through, then come what may, he is prepared to do whatever it takes.
Now, juggling between the Koja bus stop during the day and Uhuru Park at night, this very park was the only solace for 31-year-old Job Makori for the 2 years he spent beat on the streets, and not a day did his thirst for education wane. David Muthoka, TV47 at Uhuru Park, Nairobi.
Well, David Muthoka, that was definitely very inspiring. If I'm taking a look at the comments here on my Facebook page, and people are actually saying that's a very inspiring story by David Muthoka. Okay, yeah, they didn't get the name, David Muthoka. And let me tell you, this actually reminds me of back when we were in school and we were told poverty doesn't actually define you. Maybe if you can just give me of the feel of this story when you were doing David Muthoka, what went through your mind?
Well, Mariam, this is a classical case where life has, pushed you to a corner, and now you have no chance but to claw back, to try and stand up. When you fall down, when you are down, there's no going down further. You just have to stand up and move on. And he has a very good spirit, a mentality where I'm not going to take anything that life throws at me easily, and I'm going to stand up and show the world that I'm really the man who was destined to be a very great person, actually. Mwangi, what are your comments?
Yeah.
Mariam, hello, how are you? I hope you're getting us very well from Nairobi. I was telling my colleague here, David Mudoka, this story is particularly very interesting because Makori, wherever you are a real man, because this is what I will call daring Nairobi. Because how do you move from Mudoka, how do you move from Nyamira, hundreds and hundreds of kilometers away? You don't have a mobile phone and you have come to Nairobi to look for your kin. So maybe waliambiana, okay, get me at bus station, and now the kin is not there. You don't know how to locate them. So it's very interesting, it's very encouraging after all what he went through, and now he is a man pursuing a course leading to something theology. Makori, wherever you are, congratulations so much, because I felt like, how do you move from Nyamira to Nairobi?
You know, Mwangi, as he was narrating the story to me, they agreed now with the uncle who was at Nairobi that they are going to meet at a place called Jack and Jill when he arrives. So they estimated the duration. And when he came here, the uncle was nowhere to be found.
You see, now I wonder how the uncle was imagining at what time he will arrive and how they would have met. I really...
It's all about by faith. But again, you know, it's not a laughing matter, but it happened definitely. And we have a story to tell Mwangi out of that.
It's very encouraging. It's such a vibe, and after all that, after what he went through, becoming a street child and now making it, congrats, man, Makori. Muthoka, that was good, and to Makori, that is good. Mwacharo, I think there's a story there, very inspiring, of what Makori has achieved so far from whatever he went through in Nairobi streets. That is awesome.
Well, Mwangi Maina, before I let you go and come to your story, because I know you also did a very interesting piece here.
Yes,
but somebody is actually asking and directing this particularly to you, and they're asking what, apart from, you know, beating the odds, because that is beating the odds.
Yeah, sure.
They're saying possibly God always has a plan for everybody in this world, but you don't sit under a tree and wait for manna to fall from the tree. Comment on that, Mwangi Maina.
I think whoever has commented that has given yes, it's a very nice comment actually. You just don't sit down and wait for things to fall from heaven. You have to take charge, you have to move from where you are, you have to break the camp and try to break the glass ceiling and achieve what you want, Mariam. I agree with that comment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Maybe if I can move on to the next story on good vibes here. Now, the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country meant closure of schools, places of worship, and places of work, among others. This pushed a majority of people back to their homes without anything to do. But one advocate of the High Court utilized her stay-at-home time by making her dreams of writing and publishing children's books come true. Mwangi Maina had a sit-down with her and filed the following report.
We meet up with advocate Jane McKenna at her firm's office in Nairobi. Busy with her office work, McKenna is a mother of one and a budding writer of children's literature.
Advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I started practicing in 2013. So basically in practice, I have like 7 years in practice as a lawyer. I've worked for other law firms for a long time.
After a 7-year stint in employment in different law firms, she charted her way into self-employment and began her own company alongside a few partners in late 2019. When the company was slowly picking up, the COVID-19 pandemic struck the country and people were advised to stay at home, leading to closure of businesses. McKenna and her company were not left behind.
We depend on the lands registry for us to move our things, for those buying and selling property, constructions that are ongoing. And really, with all these government offices closed, we are basically doing nothing. We had no work. And for me personally, there was no work that was coming in, and the work that I earned was not actually even moving because these registries that have been closed.
In the midst of a pandemic, staying at home with no work to do, Advocate McKenna reinvented her dream of writing and publishing children's books, something that she began way back at the university, but has been an unpublished author.
I revisited my manuscripts and even wrote a fresh one. This is a fresh book. This is called My Dad, My Hero. It's a fresh book, My Dad, My Hero. It's actually about coronavirus. It speaks about, I wrote it during the COVID-19 period. It's a story about families. It's a story about the challenges and the good things that Corona has brought to families, about restoration.
Themes in her two published books revolve around encouraging children from underprivileged backgrounds, as well as challenging them to scale the heights of their dreams.
I read a lot. I would read set books for Form 4s. Those are my sister's set books when I'm still in primary school. I read books like The Concubine. I read books like this one for Ken Waribora, Sikunjema. I read books like every set book. Still in primary school, I read it and I borrowed them, all of them. So when I finished Form 4, I started writing. I had a passion to write, and I started writing storybooks. And I accumulated a lot of manuscripts throughout my college life, throughout my campus life. But I never published any book.
McKenna says celebrated children's author Barbara Kimenye found her passion of writing children's literature, which she vows to cultivate until it blossoms.
I have a series that I'm creating for kids. It just speaks about what children really go through in life. But I also write short stories. The short stories I write are for kids who are not really kids, but people who are above 14 years. I have a story in the collection that I'm doing. It's gonna be called The Reign of the Dress and Other Stories. The Reign of the Dress basically talks about corruption. It's a story that our youth should be able to read and see. Corruption in Kenya and how the dress will reign.
McKenna's parting shot has to do with cultivating our passions, as well as making good of every situation, whether good or bad.
Everything works for good for those who love God. So I'm that person who knows that even bad things, somehow God will turn them out for good. Even this pandemic, for me, God has turned it out for good, because these manuscripts would have slept and forgotten, and no one would have ever read my stories. But now people will read my stories. I'll leave a legacy. If I die tomorrow, this book is still in the market. So I've left a legacy. So I'm saying, let's just know that every bad thing turns out for good.
Such a time of a pandemic when people have lost hope and are resigned, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya found time to write a children's book during the stay-at-home time to encourage children even in times of uncertainties. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
Wow, Mwangi Maina, I was looking at you, listen to her, like you're wondering, oh my God, she accomplished all this during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I remembered, earlier on this year when the pandemic, hit the country, and school-going students who were back at home, they were told, actually, you stay home, but make use of that time. And that's exactly what she did, and that's what you found out.
Sure, Mariam. I think when people are told to stay home, Corona came knocking. It was a moment of resignation. It was a moment of despair. But I think whatever McKenna is teaching us, it is all about a change of attitude. It's a change of attitude that even if we are in difficult situations, we are in difficult times, the world is going through a difficult times, it is upon all of us to change the attitude and to see the positive side of something. If it is a pandemic, whatever it is, you see a positive side. Mudoka, she says when she is concluding the parting shot that everything works for good. If it is bad or good, it still has to work for good. Mudoka, what do you think about it?
Yes.
Absolutely, Mwangi. And as I was watching both your stories, the Swahili version earlier today and this English version, one thing that stands out for me and one thing that I've come to realize, especially, and almost everyone has realized, especially since COVID-19 struck, is the essence of not only having a plan B, but a plan C in life.
Exactly.
You see what happens to McKenna. I can imagine if I were in her shoes, you've just quit your job, began your own job, then COVID happens, what do you do next? If perhaps I was in her shoes, I would have perhaps thrown in the towel. But, you know, that what she's done brings out the strength of not only a woman, but the strength of an African. You are able to improvise, you know, and cultivate what Mwangi you mentioned earlier as your passions. Because we both have passions.
And Mariam and our viewer, we're speaking about cultivating the passion, the dreams. You see, this is a lawyer. This is an advocate. This is a person who is learned, but stooping to that level of a kid and sitting down to come up with books like that one, My Daddy, My Hero, and Happy at the Market, you know, reasoning like a child, resonating with a kid, and this is a lawyer. I think thumbs up to McKenna, and I think all of us, she's challenging us to pursue our dreams and our passions and to utilize them. And much, much more important is having a plan B, like Mudhoka had said.
Exactly. COVID has been able to bring that out. A plan B and even a plan C. You never know what life might throw at you. And when it throws lemons, make a lemonade.
Sure.
Yes, definitely. I'm taking a look at some of the comments here that are coming in, and definitely, Mwangi Maina, your words have been echoed here as well. Somebody is saying this is also a challenge. Everybody, despite whatever job you're doing, even if, he says here, even if wewe ni mtu wa mjengo, you have a dream, you have a passion, do not stop there. Always go, always try and achieve your dream. Your dreams are valid. No human is limited.
Exactly.
Definitely a lot of inspiration. Yes, definitely a lot of inspiration there. And definitely here, some students are watching. There's a girl, she says, I'm a student from Mary Hill. Okay, I'm a student from Mary Hill, and your story has really inspired me. I also write poetry, and from now on, I will not sit back and only relax. I will work hard despite the fact that my parents want me to be a doctor. So definitely we've had impact there.
Definitely.
We have. I think, Mariam, before we go, I would like to encourage that young girl to pursue her dreams. The sky is no longer the limit. So if her passion is in writing and poetry, you never know, probably the next time she will be the next Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. So
definitely.
Cheers to her.
Definitely. There's no comfort zone there.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Mwangi Maina and David Mudhoka, for those inspiring stories. We're definitely making an impact.